Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to DZR Gaming's The Armory. In-depth look into the division, the gear, guns, and strategies you need to take back New York. Hey, I'm your host, Hoagie. I'm here with two awesome guys tonight. Captain Underdog, what's happening, man?
Doing good. How you doing, Hoagie? Good to be here.
Good. Hey, I'm glad that you're back on with us. I'm excited for what's up ahead. Hey, and also with us tonight and doing the heavy lifting, Origami Train. What's happening, Origami?
Not too much. Having a good time.
Cool.
Quiet house, cold beer, ready to go.
Nice. Hey, hope you guys enjoyed the first episode. We really enjoyed doing it. It's fun to get to talk about a game that we obviously care about and really enjoy playing. We kind of teased it last time about we're going to be looking at gear sets, and we said, okay, how do we decide what gear sets? Do we really want to take the time to talk about Nomad right away? Nah, probably not. And so what we're going to be doing for the next couple weeks, probably the next month or two at least, is talking about the gear sets. They're a major part of the game. They've changed as when 1.1 came out and we had all these new sets. They changed how our game is played, and they keep changing as new gear sets are coming. The game is changing, and we're playing a different game than we were. And so we want to take time to look at these gear sets, not just a shallow look on saying, hey, by the way, tacticians helps your skill power. My mind is blown. Obviously not. That's, everybody knows that. We want to take a little deeper look into these gear sets, what they do, where we can find them, what do I need to be rolling, what weapons, skills, talents, what do these gear sets do, and how can I maximize my potential using them? So the first week, we were thinking about doing something like one of the OG ones, like Tacticians or Sentry, but Origami is loving on some Deadeye, and so we're going to be looking at the Deadeye set this week, and it came out just with the 1.3 patch, and so Xboxers and PS3ers have had it for about 2 months now. Us PS4 players, we've had it for just over a month. I personally only have a few pieces of it, so I don't have tons of experience, but it looks like a really awesome set. Hey, Origami, I know you've been checking it out and playing with it. Tell me about this Deadeye set. Start from the basics. What does it do?
So the Deadeye set is built as a DPS dealer, but not in the way that you would get out of the Sentry. You get there's a 2-piece, a 3-piece, and a 4-piece bonus. The 2-piece bonus is a 20% critical hit damage on your marksman rifles. 3-piece, you get 40% initial bullet stability. And then the 4-piece, the Deadeye talent, is 100% of your hits from the marksman rifle will be critical hits when you are shouldering or hip firing. When you are scoped, then you're not getting that critical hit buff. The side piece of that is, of course, those 100% critical hits that you're getting from shoulder firing also come with the lack of any headshot damage. So you have to choose between your headshot damage from using it as a scope rifle or the 100% critical damage hits from shouldering or hip firing.
Now, why would I want this set? Why can't I just continue to do headshots all the time?
Well, you can. The thing that's nice about this in particular is that you have some people out there who may feel like headshots are not their baby. Several people that I've run into say, I've got kind of a potato aim, and so I have trouble hitting those headshots. But the critical hit chance, when you get a critical hit, you're essentially, if your rolls are correct, getting the same damage level as you would from a headshot, except you're getting them on body shots. The additional advantage for somebody who's got a little more trouble with the headshot for this is you can really kind of hit hard and fast on your critical hits and take down an enemy quickly, especially shotgunners and rushers. Those are really easy targets for this build. So that's really the main bonus of it. If you really prefer to do the headshots, you still have that option with the scope, but you lose that critical damage. So essentially, you're maintaining the same damage level regardless.
Awesome. Well, where can I get this set if I want it?
Really anywhere now that the 1.3 update has included these dropping. Both Underground and Dragon's Nest are the primary places, but you can get them in the DZ. You can get them in supply drops as well. 2 of my pieces came from my season pass supply drops. I think only one of them actually. I have about 7 or 8 pieces that I'm playing around with on my 4-piece build. I think only 1 or 2 of them actually came from Dragon's Nest, and most of them came from Dark Zone. That's where I just spent the most of my time.
Hey, Origami, I got a question for you. You and I run this, whenever we run this group together, you run this Deadeye, we're in a group. So the question is, how does it work whenever you're playing solo? Have you tried it yet?
It's really not a solo build. It's workable. It's got some real benefit against rogues in PvP, and there's some work being done out there in the community on developing it as a solid PvE or PvP build. There's been a lot of talk about it not being a very good PvE build, but I've actually found that it's pretty solid as a PvE, even solo. But really, you wouldn't solo things where it's not a good build. So it's not great as a solo build on a heroic incursion, but who's going to do a heroic incursion solo, really? If I'm doing a daily mission solo, it works very well. And I don't have god rolls on it, but it still is a really solid damage dealer without sacrificing too much of the rest of my abilities.
That's good to know.
And let's be honest, we can all pistol a hard mode daily. So much fun, especially the new pistol. What is it? The X? Oh God, I'm forgetting the X.
The X45.
That thing hits like a tank. Good Lord.
It does.
Okay, let's get into it. We like the 4-set piece. What do I want to be using? Do I want to use a Reckless Chest? So Savage Gloves? What other sets do I want to be incorporating into this?
You can use a mix of things. What I'm seeing most people running with when they're running a 4-piece Deadeye, they're running Hunter's Faith because the 2-set bonus for Hunter's Faith is the same. It's an additional 20% critical hit damage on your marksman rifle. A lot of people are starting to talk about using Blind for the 20% buff on your pulse critical hit damage. Those are the 2 most common that are out there. I'm running Hunter's Faith myself, although I switch off to Final Measure whenever I need that extra exotic damage resilience. I am seeing some benefit in running Lone Star with it if it's what you've got. That ammo capacity does come in handy. Ideally, though, most people run Lone Star to get the restock and then switch it off for something else.
Yeah.
But certainly the downside of the Deadeye build is that because the buff is only on a marksman rifle, you really run out of ammo quickly. So Lone Star helps. Also Reclaimer helps with the support station rehealing speed, and I'll get into that probably in a little bit on the rolls. But one of the things that I find with this is because it's a squad-based gear set to run, somebody else is going to have the skill power to keep your pulse up, your smart cover up, and all of that. And so really your job as a DPS dealing support is to keep everybody else from dying so that they can provide you with the buffs that you need to do the damage. So I focus a lot of my energy on support station and first aid, and so having that Reclaimer 2-piece bonus actually is beneficial in that way.
Awesome. Before we get into some of the nuts and bolts of what we should be rolling on the different pieces, I want to hear the magic number. What is your crit hit damage at right now? How high can we get this?
It depends on who I'm running with. If I'm running with Underdog and he's got his sentry out, I am typically hitting for about 450,000. And that's when everything's out. That's with your pulse out, your smart cover up. I'll usually boost it with a tactical link as well. I've seen some people hitting for quite a bit more. But mostly what I see is my base damage is about 128k right now if I'm just running it without anything. But if I'm in a squad and we're doing a sentry mark and some skill build on another team member, I'm hitting 400,000 or 500,000 per hit, and on a 20 round mag on an M1A, that's quite a bit of firepower going downrange.
Nice. And what's your actual critical hit damage number? What percentage is that? Do you know?
Right now, I'm running about 251%. I've heard that it can get up to 322 is the highest that I've heard, and I don't know if that's a cap or not.
Interesting.
But I have heard people hitting higher. So that's the catch is all of that stuff is dependent on your pulse, your smart cover, your booster shot, your tac link. All of those talents really make the difference on this build.
Okay, let's get into it. What are, these different pieces, the things I want to be rolling on these pieces? Because there's so many different things to focus on, major attributes, minor attributes. Let's walk through chest, mask, knee, all the ones. What should I be looking at if I want to roll a good Deadeye set?
Sure. Let's start with the chest piece. The chest piece, you always want to roll armor. That's a given on basically any set. You cannot hit the armor cap on sets without rolling armor on something. So I roll armor on the chest piece. I also roll exotic damage resilience. What I find with the Deadeye for me is that I get into situations, especially in like a Dragon's Nest or going up against the cleaners, I want to have a little extra EDR, especially if I'm running the Hunter's Faith as my secondary set, or something other than Final Measure. So I typically will roll EDR where I can, and on the chest piece, I can do a decent roll there.
Nice.
Minors, I roll ammo capacity. Anywhere that you can roll ammo capacity, you really need it for this build. It's so specific to the marksman rifle that you're going to run out of ammo. And in fact, if I run into, say, DZ6, I hit the Q building, I immediately have to restock usually before I'm done going through that, just because I'm putting so many shots out. And that's partially because I could stand to spend a little more time at the range, but
potato thumbs.
But you do go through your ammo pretty quick. Exactly. So definitely roll ammo capacity on your minor. And then for your skill, a lot of people say skills don't really matter. You kind of take what you get. But I would go back up to what I said earlier, which is that one of the primary roles for this build is to keep everybody else alive. Certainly your skill builds and your tacticians are going to do a nice job of doing that themselves, but I focus my skill builds on support station and first aid wherever I can. So I would roll first aid self-heal or a support station range onto the chest.
Nice.
And I think that would close that out. For the mask, again, EDR, a lot of people roll skill power on the mask. I don't think you need it. This is mostly a personal preference, but the reality is if I'm running this build, I'm running it with someone else who has a high skill power. And so my skill power is really not going to do much. It certainly is a very valuable role, but and I think if you have skill power on it, I think that's a good option. I also would roll EDR as an alternative to that.
And again, I would just say that this is a jigsaw puzzle. It's not a linear kind of thing. So if something else really rolls something amazing EDR, it's okay to have skill power, or this isn't a fit. Sometimes we hear videos and say you have to roll this and this and this and this. And we were talking a little while ago that's just not the case. I mean, there's some. It's a mosaic. It's not a linear little 5-piece puzzle we're talking about here.
Well, I think that brings up a really good point, which is that if I have a 4-piece Deadeye, a 2-piece Hunter's Faith, what I roll depends a little bit on whether my Hunter's Faith piece is a holster or a knee pad or something else. Exactly. Because I may also want to run that Hunter's Faith piece as part of a set with some other build. And so that's sort of, I think that's a piece that we don't spend a lot of time in the community talking about, but we really should. And that's certainly a topic for a whole other podcast. Yeah. But what you roll does depend on where it is in your set. So yeah. So on the mask, I say skill power EDR. One of the two is going to be good. If you have a final measure piece in your set instead of a Hunter's Faith, then you're probably fine with doing final measure 2-piece. But for these others, I like the EDR. Miners on the mask, I would run probably some burn resistance. It's my personal preference, but enemy armor damage is really helpful as well, especially if you want to kind of max out your DPS as much as possible. And then again, first aid, ally heal, support station, healing speed, those are where I focus my energy, because I want to keep people alive. And particularly on those support station pieces, you're probably going to be running an ammo station. Yes. As part of your build, just to keep your rounds in your mag. So the more you can buff those and make them useful to other people, the better. Knee pads.
Now it seems like before we move on, you're rolling a lot of burn resistance and EDR. You run a lot of DZ06 and Dragon's Nest. I bet.
And well, I do, and I typically run up until this point. I would run Sentry's Call or a Tactician's build typically with Final Measure. And one of the things that I got frustrated with was that my Final Measure pieces are hard to come by. It's probably the least common thing that I see out there for drops. And so if I don't have the right 2 pieces of Final Measure, I'm not getting that EDR bonus from that set. So I try to focus some extra EDR and burn resistance, especially. Disorient's okay, shock's okay, bleed is useful. That burn damage really knocks you down, and the more you can deal with the burns and the explosive stuff, the better. So that's definitely a focus for me.
So we're doing a lot of burn resistance, ally heal, support station. What are the major attributes we're looking at for the rest of these pieces?
Major attributes, you're going to want to roll critical hit damage wherever you can. So knee pads, a lot of people usually roll armor there. I say skip it. Roll critical hit damage on your knee pads. On your pack, roll critical hit damage there. Don't roll skill power. It's not useful if you're running with somebody else with the skill build. Gloves, critical hit damage again. The gloves, you get 2 extra majors to roll. So obviously roll marksman damage because you're using a marksman rifle, and then roll whatever your preferred secondary weapon is. I prefer an LMG myself because of that the built-in 20% out of cover damage buff that's in the LMG. But roll whatever you're comfortable with. If you like your PP19 or your G36, try and roll towards that. And then on the holster, roll armor. So the chest piece and the holster, those are the 2 places where you roll armor. And you can, if you have decent base armor rolls and decent armor rolls on the chest and the holster for your major attributes, you'll hit that cap, and you probably will end up with a little excess even, which is of course not useful, but you get what you get sometimes.
I do have one small comment, if I can. I see that you've got the gear sets as the set pieces that complement this, but you can't rule out the high-end pieces like the Vigorous Chest, which you can run Booster Shot with. That way you get your overheal without having to run an overheal, and also you get the bonus damage and bonus damage resistance. And you can't also forget those Savage Gloves, because you can roll the same stats that you've mentioned already, plus get that bonus damage from those Savage Gloves. So you can't really discount the high-end yellows in lieu of only gear set pieces.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a very good point. And I think, I think that's important to note, because a lot of us go out and we chase those gear sets, and we all have that familiar feeling of you take down the 4 horsemen, or you take down a boss in the DZ, and you go, oh crap, it's not teal. I really wanted that shiny emerald, green cash or whatever. But you're right. I mean, some of those 229s, especially, and even lower score stuff, if that's what's dropping, are really useful for this. And I agree, the Savage Gloves especially.
Well, we've talked a little bit about, what kind of play style I'm going to have. It's obviously a DPS support.
Yes.
You're not going to be soloing a lot of things. You have first aid, support station, ammo station. Again, this is one of those things that you're going to be wanting to play with a high skill power player to help you out with that awesome smart cover and a great pulse, especially if you're doing, the blind with the pulse critical hit damage. If you're running blind and don't have a good pulse, it's not going to be very helpful.
Exactly.
So be looking for people with good pulses and good smart covers.
Yes.
And what about in the DZ? What does it look like in the DZ for you?
For me personally, I use it mostly for PvE just because that's my play style. It's been getting a lot of hype for rogue hunting. Especially when there was a glitch and it was working well with shotguns. But even after that, you can really get some quick damage. And the reason that it's good for rogue hunting is that players don't act like NPCs. And in the DZ, people still are running and gunning. They don't use cover the way that you would expect out of a cover shooter. And so getting a headshot on a rogue is pretty tough. And if you do it, you should be very proud of yourself, because I don't do it very often.
It's hard.
It's hard because they run and they roll, and if you can get the same damage level on a body shot, it's really beautiful. So with the right rolls, you can take a rogue down. I've heard it's in as few as 4 shots. I took a rogue down that was cutting my rope, and he was a little squishy, I think, but I took him down in 7 shots out of a 20-round mag. So it's quick damage. You can see it happening. It's not one of those situations where you go ping him and you feel like you're shooting frozen peas. It really does good, solid damage, even without the bonuses. And so if you're running it in the DZ, especially if you have a sentry with you or a claimer with you, somebody who's doing some additional kind of side bonuses to your damage, it's really, really nice out there in the DZ.
Awesome. Well, one of the questions that we're going to be talking about with a lot of these set pieces is what weapons do I want to use? And obviously, we want to be using a marksman's rifle.
Obviously.
Secondary one is really whatever you want to use. SMG, LMG, whatever, shotgun. And then the X45 is the beast of a pistol.
Yeah.
My question for you now, though, is for your marksman rifle, can I just as automatically switch from the M1A, which is the semi-auto, to the M44, which is more of a bolt action? Now, is that just preference, or is there a specific reason that you want to do that?
I would recommend the M1A, or even the SVD if you have a good roll on an SVD, and you can even get into some of the others like the Mark 20, which has a bigger mag, although less damage. And the reason for that is that with a bolt action, you have a reload time that you've got to deal with. You've got to wait that extra second or so before you can take another shot off. And, we all are running overdose these days. I mean, most people are running overdose or some sort of a heal. A lot of people are running triage as well, or other things that give them boosts. And so you really want to be able to hit some quick damage into your target before they can heal themselves back up and make all of that work that you've done meaningless. In the M44.
Now, does that change if you're doing? I'm sorry. Yeah. Does that change if you're doing PVE? Because if I have an M44 and I'm thinking about my weapon mods, if I can roll, and now I might be wrong on this, if I can roll my muzzle mod to not have stability or accuracy and have some critical hit damage, aren't I just boosting my output where I could use the time of that bolt action to actually have my accuracy come down?
Correct.
Is that something that you've worked out as far as PvE, or is this just mostly thinking PvP?
I think on PvP you definitely want to have the additional, you want to have the semi-auto capability. I think on PvE,
that makes sense.
As long as you have a good roll on your M44, especially if you have something with, say, Deadly on it, which gives you the additional critical hit damage boost. Even something like putting the bleed effect on. Some of those are helpful, although less so. In that instance, I think an M44 does pretty well. I have yet to find an M44 that does significantly better damage in the same amount of time than my M1A. Certainly not since I've been running Deadeye. I used to use the M44 quite a bit, and I like the bolt action, the SRS also. But the M1A typically that I'm seeing out there is just it's putting more damage downrange in a shorter amount of time. So I think it's usable, but at least in my experience so far with the testing and the several other people who are using it that I've been working with, M1A reigns supreme, and SVD is probably behind.
I was just going to say M1A is still the king of marksman rifles after all these patches.
Yeah, a lot of people running the SVD.
Still holding on.
And I had for about an hour, I had an SVD that was outdoing my M1A, but I sold it accidentally, which we've all done, I'm sure. And so, mostly what I'm finding is the M1As are still the supreme damage dealer.
I love it. For 3 months, I ran my M1A. For about an hour, I ran my SVD. Now I'm back. Okay. You've been talking about skills and talents a little bit that you'd be using and how that works for the team. Why don't you just run us real quick for 30 seconds? Okay, what skills should I be using? What talents? And how does that play with the team?
Sure. Your skills are going to depend on how you're playing. I know there are still some solo players out there. Hello, it's nice to meet you. There are not many of you left. I was one for a long time. I would say if you're running solo, then run your tactical pulse, run your smart cover with either your recharger for your skill cooldowns or even your conceal to get some pulse action out of that. I'm not seeing a major bonus out of that. If you're in a squad, run booster shot. You get a damage boost out of your booster shot for first aid. Your squad mates are going to be running overdose, so they'll take care of the overheals. Run recovery link probably for your squad play or tactical link. Tactical link does it has a really solid damage boost, but recovery link is good to have as a backup as long as somebody in your squad's got it. And then run your support station, especially the ammo one. You're not going to have the healing capability as somebody with a higher skill build, but you're definitely going to be dishing out that ammo. And on a marksman rifle only build, that's really, really critical. Even more so when you get into the underground and you start talking about things like waste not, want not.
What about talents? Any talents that jump out?
Yeah, one is none is sort of the obvious one, just because you have a 50% chance of saving it. Although because you're losing some of those headshots bonuses, it's not going to be as useful as it would say on a sentry build. Triage, I always run triage anyway. I think that I don't think I've run into a squad where we aren't all running triage, because it's really the most beneficial skill talent out there that I've seen. If you have a marksman rifle that's got bleed effect on it, then run shrapnel potentially, because you can get that bleed effect on some of the side targets. And the same thing with wildfire. If somebody on your team is running reclaimer and throwing incendiary rounds to you, that can be beneficial. But really, the make or break for my experience has been triage, of course, and then roll from there.
Nice. Okay, well, we've been talking a little bit about how we're working in the team. Is there anything specifically that you want to point out as supporting the team in this gear set?
Yeah, the real standout of this set is anywhere that you're going to run into a rusher. Dragon's Nest, farming the Four Horsemen. The thing that will always drop you isn't the Four Horsemen; it's those freaking axe runners with the Jordan moves. So
yes,
if they're weak, they they take damage quickly and they go down quickly, but they move quick as well. And so being able to really just spam them with critical hits drops them so quickly. Same is true with shotgunners. Anybody that's going to get in your close quarters area and do some real damage to your teammates, that's where this set really, really shines. It's good as a damage dealer in general. It's not Sentry's Call, but paired with a Sentry's Call in your squad, it's pretty good. It's a pretty solid build. But yeah, it's not your, if you're looking for a squad to get through something and you're looking for a DPS build and somebody says I have Deadeye, you still probably want a Sentry on there.
What about limitations on this set? We've been hearing a lot of good things. I've heard a few of these little bits in here. What are some of the limitations that you see?
Well, firstly, just as I said, it's not useful as the primary damage dealer in a squad. It'll get by, but if you have somebody who can headshot reliably with a different build, you're going to do more damage that way. Just because your base headshot damage and your body shot critical damage are roughly equivalent depending on your rolls. So not so useful as the primary damage dealer, but very useful as the support. And then it's not quite so useful as a solo build, because in order to get the bonuses that you need, you have to be rolling Tactical Pulse, you have to be rolling Booster Shot, you have to be rolling Smart Cover, you have to be rolling Tac Link. And all of that's fine if you're in a hard mission and you're able to solo that on a pistol anyway. But it's not really great if you're going to go up against anything a lot tougher than that, because you're sacrificing some of the other things that are going to keep you alive. You're having to sacrifice the ammo station, so you're going to run out of ammo more quickly. There's a big trade-off if you're running solo, and so it's really not the ideal build for that.
Okay, here's the magic question, okay?
Yeah.
Does it actually work? Do you like it? Is it something that you want to play with?
I love it. It's my favorite thing I've run with so far, and I'm in the Underdog camp here, where I've reached a point in this game where I get to try stuff out and try and make a case for things that are a little less common, a little less favored. He and I have been both talking about trying to make something out of Lone Star and Nomad, some of those other side builds that just didn't get the press. Deadeye is a front runner build for me, and it's officially my primary for the foreseeable future. So it does exactly what I think it's intended to, which is drive the division towards more squad-based play and get rid of some of the solo activity. It was always meant to be a tactical squad shooter at RPG, and I think this is one of those sets that Massive hit the mark on for getting people in that thought process. So I think it hits there, and I think that it's if you view it in that lens, then you're gonna love this set. If you view it in the lens of trying to go out there and just be a glass cannon or be a tactician or be one of those sort of standard builds that are out there, it's not going to be the right build for you. But certainly for squad-based play, it's hands down the best thing I've played with, and I've played with most of the sets out there, and I keep coming back to it now that I've tested it out. It's beautiful.
Nice. Squad-based play. Spoken like a true Tom Clancy fan.
Yep.
Okay, hey, Captain, I have a question for you before we wrap up. Has Origami convinced you to go check out Deadeye and start making this build? What do you think?
He has. I need to stop handing over my pieces and try to actually use some.
That's the only way I could get him to test it.
Nice. Cool. Well, it sounds really awesome to me. Thanks so much for all your work putting this stuff together. This is, this is the kind of content we want to produce. Not just surface level, shallow stuff, but taking 25, 30 minutes talking about these sets, what makes them good, what doesn't make them good, how can we use them, how can we be a part of our squad and get through the content that we have in front of us. Hey, we're going to continue talking about gear sets. We're going to be up next. We're going to be probably talking about some tacticians or some sentry or some reclaimer, some of the more popular sets that are out there. But then we're going to start delving into some of the more, I'm sure that Lone Star build is going to come up sometime in the future. We love producing content for you guys. Hey, if you guys have questions, email us at dzrarmory@gmail.com. That's dzrarmory@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your questions or your thoughts. Hey, if you want to do that directly, go check out darkzonereport.com. We have some content up there on that site, but it's also the gateway into our DZR Discord, which is these guys are in there every single day talking about builds, talking about the game. So come check us out. And I just want to say thanks again so much for being on the show tonight, guys. And I'll talk to you soon.
All right.